a quick agenda on this, that what is that we are going to look into from the overall coverage perspective. So it's about what are the essentials of the AIMS, that is the artificial intelligence management system. So what are the core requirements of this? Audit scoping, so define the boundaries for the AI systems and the data. Obviously, why you do audit is to control the risks, so risk controls. So auditing bias, safety, ethical impact, all those things has to be considered under this. How to collect the evidence? So model logs, documentation review, all those things will be reviewed under this, and then reporting the success or the failure of the audit. So that is how we are going to get into step by step. So what are the essentials of the AIMS? How you navigate to the core requirements of the AIMS from an audit standpoint. So these essentials are defined under the ISO IC 42001. So ISO IC 42001 is the first global standard for the artificial intelligence management. Okay, so this standard has got the clauses which depicts the requirement. So when we are discussing that, yeah, we are having the compliance to be done. So that your compliance is towards the clauses. Okay, so your clauses depicts what are the requirements to the standards. Okay, and normally these clauses are same for any management system. So clause 4 to clause 10 remains same whether you are doing ISO IC 27001 or ISO IC 9001, or even say ISO IC 27701, which speaks about the privacy information management system. So for anything, this remains same. Only the contents of these will change respective to the management system. And then you have the annexure. So annexure A has the 38 controls spread across 9 objectives. So that is what you get in the standard. So it is the first certifiable management system for the artificial intelligence. Okay, which has the requirements defined in clauses. It is applicable to the organizations who are into AI development or AI deployment, or the users of the AI based products. Okay, so you can be a developer, you can be a deployer, or you can be a end user of the artificial intelligence. Now, when you think that you need to have the compliance to the standard, you will go for the certification. So it addresses the AI specific risks, okay, like bias of the outputs, the transparency of the systems, explainability of the system, responsible or accountable use of the system, and the overall life cycle management. So this certification requires the stage 1 and stage 2 audits for the initial level. Initial is when you want to be certified for the first time. Okay, so that is, it is a 2-stage audit. In stage 1, you do the documentation review. In stage 2, it is about analyzing the effectiveness of the implementation, what you have done. So evidence collection happens here. So in the AIMS structure, as I said, there are the clauses 4 to 10, which are auditable requirements. Okay, so these are the mandatory requirements defined by the standard when you want to be certified. Starts with the context. So why a organization want to be certified under AIMS? Who are the internal and external stakeholders? So you have internal versus external stakeholders. Then what is the scope of AIMS? So Is it for the entire organization? Is it for a specific department? Is there any impact of the climate change? Because you are using a high processing computer, so it will generate heat, it will require more energy. So will it have any impact on the climate? Analysis, that is defined here. Involvement of leadership is defined under clause 5. So top management commitment, drafting of the AI policy, roles and responsibilities is defined in this clause. Planning is done under clause 6, where the policies related to the AI risk assessment, AI impact assessment, the AI objectives, okay, AI risk treatment, okay, all these things are defined under clause 6. Clause 7 is about support, where the resources, their competencies, awareness, training, all this is handled under clause 7. Clause, whatever you define under clause 6, you execute under clause 8. So where you have created a risk assessment policy, now you will actually do the assessment. So the actual risk assessment happens under clause 8. Actual impact assessment happens under clause 8. So you prepare your risk inventory under this clause. You analyze the risk and then you treat the risk. Okay, so you have mitigation, you have acceptance, you have risk avoidance, and then you have risk transfer, the way of risk treatment. Okay, so you treat the risk. And then in the clause 9, it is a continuous evaluation. It is monitoring of your AIMS implementation, your internal audits, your management reviews happen here, and leading to the improvement, a continual improvement. Okay, where the non-conformity analysis, actions on the non-conformity is taken. So that is how your overall AIMS structure from the requirements perspective work. Now, when you have requirements and you are identifying the risk, you require the controls to mitigate those risks, treat those risks. So those controls are defined under Annexure A of the ISO IC 42001, which has 9 control domains or control objectives and 38 controls. Okay, and these controls are defined as A.2, A.3, A.4, and under each control you have a different objectives. Like under A.2, you speak about the AI policies. A.3, it is internal organization. So the organization has to select out of these 38 controls, what are the controls applicable to the organization. They want to apply that and then prepare the statement of applicability of these controls. So if are you going to implement this control in your organization, yes or no? In both scenarios, whether yes or no, you have to give a justification. Why yes, why no? So inclusion, you have to justify. Exclusion, you have to justify. Okay, and if organization feels that apart from these 38, there are 5 or 10 or 15 other controls which are not listed here but are required for your organization, they can be included. Okay, so there is no restriction to stick to these controls. And then how to implement these controls is defined. The guidance is given in Annexure B. So organization can take the guidance from the Annexure B and implement these controls. Now, as an auditor, what will give you the assurance that yes, the standard is properly implemented, there is a conformity of the organization to the standard? You review the documentation. So what kind of a documentation you review? You ask for the AI policy, which is a base. Okay, objectives, why, Okay, so you then have the respective clauses under which you will ask for this. You define the scope, okay, of the AIMS implementation. So, on an organization level, on the business level, on the unit level, on the site level, where all it is applicable for an organization. Then you will have the system inventory of the AI. Okay, so what kind of a software, what kind of a hardware you are using, what are the resources you are using, so that inventory will be made. Once the inventory is made, the risk assessment related to this inventory, okay, your data is a important inventory, so you will do the risk assessment and you will plan it under 6.1.4 and you will actually execute it under 8.4 clause. Okay, you will prepare the statement of applicability. We just had a discussion last slide. It is prepared under 6.1.3. Data management records 8.6 as a control. You will ask that how you are managing the data. What are the sources of the data? Okay, quality of the data, ownership of the data. This all has to be checked. What are the roles and responsibilities relevant to AI? You will find it out under 5.3. Your internal audit results. So what is your plan? Okay, what are the internal audit findings? What is the frequency? What are the non-conformities or areas for improvement? All that you will check under 9.2, and there will be a management review which will happen under 9.3. So these are the sample documents. These are not the only documents, but these are the sample documents what you will ask. So what AI policy organization should prepare? So AI policy should be a very crisp document which should depict that why organization want to implement the AIMS. Okay, so it should look like that. What is a framework? So this governs the responsible development, deployment, and use of AI system across organization. Okay, and it is applicable to all employees. So each organization then will have that, okay, it is for responsible development. This is important thing, because if it is not responsible development or deployment or use or all, okay, then you have a problem. Who are the parties included? So it is applicable to employees, to the contractors, to the vendors. So that means you are covering all. Okay, you want the transparency, fairness, accountability, safety, privacy. So you are covering all the pillars of the AI security under the policy. How is going to be your governance structure? So you will have the risk officer, you will have the governance board, you will have the system owners, how you will do the risk management, monitoring and review, how it will happen. So you will define a high level statement that how this policy is going to help the organization. So when the organization is doing this, then as an auditor, you will do the scoping of the audit. Okay, so how you will do the scoping? You will define based on the organization's information what is the boundary based on AI system inventory. Okay, so you will catalog all the system scope, the machine learning, the models, systems, and then you will define what are the boundaries for which this will be applicable. So which departments, business units, the sites will be under the scope, which kind of a data will be covered. Okay, so the training data sources used for the AI systems, okay, third party data, all this life cycle coverage, all the development activities which will be under the scope of this AIMS. So all this you will define and all you will cover. So there will be a scope checklist which will be prepared by the auditor. Okay, so you verify the AIMS scope statement, which has to be formally documented by the organization. There has to be a inventory. Check the scope includes what all, statement of applicability for which controls are applicable, which are not, and why. Okay, ensure that it addresses all the regulatory requirement. Like if you are having the organization based out of European Union, then EU AI Act will be applicable. Or if there are any country specific rules, then those will be applicable. You have to review any exclusions if there are any exclusions, and then also why. Okay, confirm the life cycle stages of the AI system and interfaces within that system. So all that will be reviewed when you are having the scope checklist. Then there will be, when the initial certification is happening, there will be a stage 1 and stage 2 audit, only applicable in case of initial certification. Okay, initial certification means first time getting certified under this standard. Once that is done, for the next 2 years, you will have surveillance audit, and surveillance audit will not have the stage 1, stage 2. And after 2 years, the third year, so you do the certification, then you have surveillance audit 1, surveillance audit 2, and for the third year, you will go for recertification. So the validity of the certification is only for 3 years. Then you go for recertification. There also you don't have stage 1, stage 2. So it is only for the first time. So in stage 1, you do the review of readiness. So you review the documentation. Okay, whether it is completed, what is the scope, okay, is it defined in a proper way, is the policy and objectives defined, is the risk assessment methodology defined. That means again risk assessment process, whether it is defined or not. Statement of applicability is prepared or not, is it proper or not. Okay, and it all the documentation review. Apart from that, you will review the resources, you will review the internal audit plans, and you will check whether it is ready for stage 2 or not. If it is ready, you will do the stage 2 within 2 to 4 weeks of completion of stage 1. So if there are any non-conformities which are to be fulfilled, you will give time to the organization. And in stage 2, you will do the operational effectiveness checking. You will have the verification of the functionality of the controls. Okay, wherever the senior management or other people are required to be questioned, you will do the interview. You will check the model logs, the data quality, data origin. Okay, you will assess the effectiveness of the risk assessment, risk treatment. So you will check on the overall risk management process. Okay, you will evaluate if there are any corrective actions. So what is the process for that? So that all will be checked during the stage 1 and stage 2 audit. So normally these all things, right from beginning, the organization taking a decision to getting certified is normally a process of around 13 to 16 weeks. So you start with assessment, whether you want to be certified on the ISO IC 42001. So you do your gap analysis, you do the inventory of all AI system, you do the scoping and the documentation. Then you have your policy creation, objective definition, risk assessment process, statement of applicability you do in stage 2. Then in stage 3, you do the internal audits for your organization to verify the effectiveness of your implementation. So you find out the evidence, and then you apply for the external body to come and do the audit. So certification body will come and do the audit. So it is a 13 to 16 weeks process. Okay, so certification decision will be taken by the body by tentatively by week 16 if you follow the process in a correct way. So in auditing, what a auditor is supposed to do the risk based audit. So he will have the auditing on the bias, safety, ethical impact of the artificial intelligence system. Okay, so it will have the framework like, are there any technical risks? So if the model is properly designed or not? Is there any possibility of adversarial attack, data poisoning, or a corruption? Is it possible? Is the model robust or not? Ethically designed or not? Algorithm bias, lack of explainability, all this will be checked. Social risk, if you say you are auditing a autonomous vehicle or you are auditing any autonomous system, so what is the impact of these things on the society? Okay, if any workforce is going to get jobless, okay, is there any environmental impact? Okay, as I say, you are going to use GPU, so GPU may have a negative impact because of the energy consumption. So will it have any negative impact on the environment? So that all has to be checked. Public trust has to be verified. And then what are the risks for the organization? Do you have the required skill sets? Are you dependent on the third parties? So all that will be evaluated in AI risk framework. Okay, so you will validate whether all the things are from a risk perspective analyzed or not, and then if there are any risk, what is the impact of that risk? So you will do the impact assessment. Okay, so you will have the focus on the individuals and society of the identified risk. So if that risk materializes, what will be the impact? What is a perspective from the organization's perspective, which will be for the risk? And if that risk materializes, what will be the impact on the stakeholders, on the society? Okay, what are the clauses? 6.1.2 is for the risk assessment, 6.1.4 for the impact assessment, 8.2 for the actual execution of the risk assessment, 8.4 for the impact assessment execution. Okay, so full AI lifecycle has to be checked for the risk and affected individuals and groups for the impact. Okay, so whatever is the scope of your organization's AI, as per that you will decide the scope. Say if you are developing an autonomous vehicle, say like Tesla, fully automatic driverless vehicle, then it will have an impact on entire society, how that is driven on the roads. Okay, but if you are developing a software, say, which is for automation of insurance claims, then your impact is only on a limited industry. So you will do the impact assessment only for that. You don't have to do for everyone. So auditors will verify the assessment also and impact assessment also, and then they will go for the treatment verification. So organization normally to give as a evidence that they have done the risk assessment, they have done the impact assessment, they have done the risk treatment, what they prepare is risk register. So it is not recommended by the standard, but as it gives everything together, the risk register is prepared. So each risk must have a linkage to the control, that how it is going to be mitigated. Okay, you will have the impact, you will have the likelihood. So this is just a sample. The actual register is much more complex. So you will have the risk registered audited. You will, as an auditor, will check for the bias and fairness. So auditors will verify the bias testing on the methodology on AI systems. So whatever AI system, whether you are developing or you are deploying or you are using, you will have the verification done. The fairness metrics, what you have used, what training data you have used, how you have checked on the correctness of the data. Okay, so here the common non-conformities are that your fairness metrics are not proper, bias testing is limited, training data composition is not proper, lack of human oversight is there. So all this auditing bias and fairness will be checked. There has to be a safety and transparency controls. So there has to be a human supervision. You cannot have a complete unsupervised artificial intelligence, especially in high risk scenarios. So you have to check and override the capabilities. There has to be a explainability, transparency of the system, that how the AI output is generated. Okay, the stakeholders should know. Okay, if say you are audited by a HRMS bot, you are a candidate, then how this bot is going to audit you and why your result was positive or negative, that explainability of the system, that is how it functions, that explainability has to be there. Safety testing of evidence has to be there, that it is not unethical, it is not generating any bias, it is not having any threat to the society. Okay, that has to be checked. There has to be a incident response plan for the artificial intelligence system. Okay, so transparency or explainability is not a optional thing. So when these things are done, the evidence will be collected by the auditors. So they have to collect the evidence. What are the evidences? So evidences that you will have the AI policy documents, like a governance of evidence, which is more from how you are controlling. Okay, your board meetings, the minutes of meeting of that, the your role assignment metrics, your competency metrics, training records, these are your governance compliance evidences. Technical evidences is about your model versioning, your change logs, your training data, your testing data, your validation reports. Operational evidences is that how you have done the deployment, human supervision, incident response plan, your third party reports, that all will be a type of evidence what you will collect. And then there will be the model documentation which will be required. Okay, so auditor will look for the fact sheet of the model, the training data records on which you are training the models, validation of the results, version control, monitoring setup. So all these evidence for each of the category will be asked by the auditor, and the verification will be whether this evidence is properly relevant or not. So evidence collection has to be done in a way that it should be traceable. So when you want to recheck, that should be available. It should be current. It should not be outdated, or you have checked something which is 3 years old, not applicable. So timelines are important. Okay, not historical, not snapshots. So you need a current evidence with a proper sample. Okay, so you cannot have, say, you have audit of 5,000 employees and you have checked 10 records. No, improper sample. You need at least 200 to 500 records checked for this, at least 10%. Okay, completeness, it should cover the full cycle. You should not just check the partial evidence and say, okay, the things are working in a right way or not. So all this evidence collection best practices has to be implemented by the auditor. Okay, and then when all these things are done, everything is properly implemented. Okay, what auditor is supposed to be doing once he follow the process, that okay, he checks the documentation, he finds the relevance of the evidence. All this is done to find and finalize the report. Okay, so auditor will prepare the report. So he will classify the audit findings. So what is the main objective of the audit? Is to do the fact finding. So audit is a fact finding mission. Okay, and not fault finding. Okay, many auditors get into finding the mistakes. No, your role is to find the facts. So what is that you are going to find? A conformity. Conformity to standard, to AIMS. Okay, so if there is any deviation, this deviation can be a major deviation, it can be a minor deviation. Major deviation is when there is a complete absence or a failure of the required element. That means you can't go ahead. There is no way. Okay, then there is a major conformity without which you will not be able to confirm the adherence to the standard. So certification decision cannot be taken as yes. You cannot. So you will there will be a showstopper. That is a major non-conformity. Minor is that it's a small lapse which can be fixed and certification can be processed. Okay, so if my major is there, it has to be resolved before certification. Here the certification can be processed, but there has to be a clear and concise corrective action plan. Okay, then there are certain observations. It is called as area for improvement. That these are not the non-conformities. These are not the where the corrective actions are required. These are more to be addressed as a suggestion. Okay, so organization may or may not decide to follow it. Okay, and then you have conformity where the organization is adhering to the requirements properly. Okay, there is a adequate evidence available that organization is following the path. Okay, so that is what is required to be classified as the audit finding. So what are the top non-conformities in any ISO IEC 42001 audits? So incomplete AI inventory. Organizations, they miss to add everything. A proper assessment tracking of the risk is missing, especially societal and ethical dimensions. No impact assessment documented. Many times this is missing. Model monitoring and drift evidences are not maintained. So model training is not maintained. There is no human supervision documented. Normally it is unnoticed. Training data quality and bias assessment gaps are not documented. Okay, the statement of applicability is not latest. It is almost outdated. Okay, so these are various non-conformities which organizations end up having. Okay, and then they have to follow the corrective action process. They have to identify why it happened, then they have to take a immediate containment action. Okay, which is a correction. Okay, a correction is a temporary workaround. Then you do the root cause analysis, find the reason, and then take a corrective action. Okay, so you give a permanent solution and then you monitor that okay, it is working as required. Okay, so auditors should verify the centralized tracker for the non-conformities and the RCA metrics. Okay, all the corrective actions are addressed as per the timelines, okay, and effectiveness of those actions. That is what is to be checked by the auditors during the audit. So when you are doing an external audit, you will check the results of internal audit. When you are doing a surveillance audit, you will check the pending points of the previous audit. So these are to be done. So your audits, how you will do? So there will be a surveillance audit. Surveillance audit will be followed by the management reviews. Okay, there will be the monitoring KPIs, metrics. Okay, there will be a regulatory alignment which will happen, with which there will be the organization will work on a continuous improvement which will happen. Okay, so that is what will be required for you to be a good auditor for AIMS system. So what are the key points to take here? You have to know the standard very clearly. What are the clauses applicable? What are the controls applicable? What is the scope of the audit defined by the organization? It is clear or not? Okay, assess the holisticity of the standard, evaluate the ethical, technical, societal risks of the organization, demand the evidence. Okay, ask for the evidence, check for the conformity, and drive for the improvement. So that is what is going to be covered under this standard. This is a high level overview. Okay,